Since this is our Hawaiian Sunday, I thought it would be nice to actually do Ho'oponopono. So if you've never done it before, it is a practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. So if you're willing to do this, this will be our meditation today. I invite you to place your left hand on your heart. I invite you to take your right hand and kind of just send it outward. All right? I invite you to take a deep breath in and release it. Another deep breath in and release. And a third deep breath in and release. Now I invite you, in your mind's eye, to picture anyone in your life who you feel has wronged you in some way at any point in time. Put that person vividly in your mind as we practice Ho'oponopono. It's 4 phrases, and here it is. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I invite us to say these words silently to ourselves once again, to that person in our mind's eye. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now I invite you to picture in your mind's eye somebody that you believe or have come to know that you have wronged. Again, at any point in time, picture that person in your mind's eye as we practice Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now we were going to do something that may be the most difficult of all. I invite you to take your right hand and I invite you to put it over your left hand on your heart. And we are going to do Ho'oponopono for ourselves. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And now we will sit in silence for a few moments and feel the peace, love, and forgiveness. I invite you, whenever you feel it would be helpful during the week, to practice Ho'oponopono in any situation where you feel challenged. It could be waiting in line at the grocery store. It could be when you're stuck in traffic. It can be when you're having a particularly bad day. It could also be when you're having what you consider to be the best day of your life. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Thanks to both Pete and Ross, who, as of this morning, I have now labeled as the Pineapple Twins. I did ask them if they had coordinated this, because I knew Pete had the shirt, but I hadn't seen Ross in a while, and Ross was like, there are some things that just spontaneously happen, but this is not one of them. So he had a really good response. Thanks, y'all, though. That was really good. All right, so welcome everybody. I think I've met everybody in the room, but if there's anybody I have not, or anybody that's tuning in to our online service this morning, my name is Reverend Evin Wilkins, and I'm happy to have everybody here today, especially on this Hawaiian Sunday. I mean, look at all the vibrant colors that we have on today. Hopefully everybody got one of the leis, and so everybody is looking really vibrant and excited and happy. But for me, so we've got this Hawaiian theme going on today, this aloha theme, and you think that I really love Hawaii, right? I mean, nothing makes me think about Hawaii more than being in the state of Wisconsin. I just had to throw that out there. That just came out spontaneously. And we're going to talk about being reactive later, so we'll, y'all can point your fingers at me later. But anyway. But you'd think having this kind of theme could only be dreamed about by somebody that's been to Hawaii, right? But the truth is, I have never been to Hawaii. Never. But it's one of those places that I would really like to go. I mean, has anybody in here ever really been, you feel really drawn to a place that you've never been before? Yeah, it's one of those things that you can't explain, but you think about this place and you're really drawn to it. Well, Hawaii is one of those places for me. And I actually feel the same way about Costa Rica, so prepare yourselves. We'll figure out something to do for that as well. But one of the reasons I think I feel so drawn to Hawaii is just because of the nature. If you've heard me talk before, you've heard me mention nature and how much I love nature and how much I love being out in nature. It's kind of one of those things, you ever have one of those moments where you're somewhere out in nature, you're looking at the ocean, maybe you're staring up at the sky on a clear night, or you're in the mountains and you're just looking at the mountains and noticing how beautiful it is. And it's like all of a sudden, within just a moment, everything just kind of comes into perspective. A lot of those things that we fight about, whether it's politics or whatever it is, just seems so small and minuscule in that moment. And everything just looks so different and just makes sense. And nothing can really quite drive home that feeling the way nature can, for me at least. So when I think about it, for me, it's really no surprise that I feel drawn to Hawaii. There's nothing more than I want to just take my shoes off and just kind of walk on one of those sandy beaches, maybe just have a pina colada in my hand and just kind of kick back. And I wish I could have brought the beach here to you today, but that was going to be a little difficult. We got this decor, but the beach was a little bit of a different challenge. So anyway, we'll just have to pretend like we can hear the water, like the ocean water. But another thing I think that's really neat about Hawaii is its rich history of its evolving spirituality. It's definitely worth delving into if you ever have time. I don't know a lot about it, but what I've read about it's really interesting. So check it out if you ever get a chance. It's really, really neat and really interesting. But another thing that I think is so neat about Hawaii that seems to fit its colorful nature is its state flower. Does anybody in here know what the state flower of Hawaii is? Yeah, I hear hibiscus. Yeah, whoever said hibiscus, yeah, you're right, it's the hibiscus. But it's the yellow hibiscus now. In 1988, or it used to just be the hibiscus, and then in 1988, Hawaii actually adopted the yellow hibiscus as its state flower. Now, this really excited me to read about this because this color, the color of yellow, happens to align with one of my favorite chakras. And this is the chakra of wisdom, the chakra of self-esteem and of clarity. And it's also one of our Unity 12 powers. Kind of ties in together a little bit, the power of wisdom. And does anybody know where in the body this chakra and this power is found? Anybody? Let's see, Heather. Not quite. Yep, solar plexus, stomach. Yep, it's found right here. Yep. We have another one for the head over here. I saw somebody put it, but we have another one. But it's one of my favorite. Wisdom is one of my favorite things because it's where the rubber starts to meet the road. Because we hear about being in our heads sometimes, making decisions and things from our head. And we also hear of making decisions from our heart. Well, wisdom is where the head and the heart come together, where they just kind of collide together and they start to work together. It was also one of the more favored, I'm going to say chakra. This chakra was one of more of our favored from our master metaphysician, which is Jesus, exactly. Now, of course, as far as I know, Jesus didn't just come out and talk about chakras or tell everybody what his favorite chakra was. But he so often talked about how important it is to live by standards of the higher self. Jesus mentioned that a lot in the Bible, living according to the standards of the higher self, rather than the examples that are set forth in the physical world. That higher self being wisdom in this instance. So let's pull this knowledge into today right now. Into our physical world and into the year of 2021. So let's think about this for a second. In Unity, we look at Jesus as our master teacher or our master metaphysician. And why do you think the words of Jesus might still be important to us today? Because you may think, well, he lived like a really long time ago. Things were just completely different. So why would the teachings that he taught back in his time still be important today? Why would it still be important to live according to the standards of the higher self rather than what we look around and see with our outer eyes or those things we hear with our physical ears? And I've always admittedly felt that we never knew a whole lot about Jesus, really. Other than his teachings. We heard about his teachings, but we never got to really hear much about his day-to-day life. When he wasn't out teaching and traveling and those kinds of things. Did he fight with his siblings? We don't know. Did he ever talk back to his mother when he was a teenager? It's one of those other mysteries. We don't know. And there are likely things that we'll never know about Jesus, but what we do know is that he was said to not live a reactive life, or a reactive kind of life. So according to the main Unity website, unity.org, in reference to Jesus, it says, never did he react to any person or any situation with the expected response of a human being. Always he acted and spoke from the light within himself, the light that enabled him to judge by spiritual methods, to answer from divine insight into the motives of others, the potentiality of good, and the revelation of the Christ within. So how can we bring and practice these teachings right now into the year of 2021? How can we really tune into that chakra, that 12 power of wisdom, when trying to make sense of or to deal, so to speak, the word deal, with what is going on now in our world and our time to live in this world. Now I mentioned, and you heard me mention earlier, the word reactive, but I mentioned the word reactive when referring to Jesus a minute ago, about how Jesus was known for not having a reactive nature. And let's think about the stories we've heard about Jesus in reference to that. And of other figures even, other figures we've heard about and maybe follow their teachings. The Buddha, Gandhi, people that are even still alive now, the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, whoever you choose to follow or to learn from or to study from. It's likely that they're not coming from this place of reaction. Because if they were walking around, reacting all the time, we probably wouldn't want to study their teachings, right? But what is one of the things that they all seem to have in common, all of these revered spiritual teachers? Their ability to remain calm despite whatever it is that's going on around them. You ever notice that? How these revered spiritual teachers always seem to remain calm no matter what's going on outside around them. Not one of them was, or is, in the case of Dalai Lama, since he's still living, was known for their reactive behavior. Now, I'm not sure about you, but for me, this is a practice sometimes. Obviously, since I said what I said about Wisconsin, but I like it here. It is a pretty state. I will tease y'all lots of times, but I'm still here, so I like it just fine. It's a beautiful state. But I read about something that's going on in the world or our country nowadays, and I can become pretty reactive. And we've got people tuning in online this morning because I was going to say, let's not let this leave the room. So if you're watching, don't let this leave the service. But think about it, for a moment. For all of this contention over the virus right now and how it's being handled, politics, arguments over the climate, the twistings of the teachings of Jesus and what Christianity really is or means. Regardless of how you feel about any of these topics, and there's many, many more out there, it's easy to become pretty reactive, isn't it? And when we react, we often do so without even thinking about it, don't we? It's one of those moments that you hear or you read something and you get this really strong feeling about it, and before you know it, the words just fly out of your mouth. And they're flying out of our mouth based on how strongly we feel about these situations. It's one of those, oops, I probably shouldn't have said that types of moments. And this happens with more than just strangers on the internet, right? Those are easy because you're kind of hiding behind a keyboard. But it happens with more than just strangers on the internet. It also happens to the people in our lives, the people that we love and care about. It happens to ourselves. Oops, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So back to Jesus for a minute. The story tells us, all the different stories about Jesus tell us that he almost really couldn't get a moment's worth of peace. People were said to be lining the streets just to be able to get a glimpse of him, or lining up wherever he was going to talk, or just to be able to touch him, to touch his coat for healing that they were told that they would receive from Jesus. And I would imagine that there were also a few out there that didn't support Jesus. We know for a fact that there were at least a few because we know how the story of Jesus' life ultimately ended. But what about just the regular people that, were like, hey, I don't know who this hippie guy is walking along the streets doing these teachings, but I don't agree with it. We didn't hear about those people. I'm sure there's some of those people were a little vocal to Jesus when he passed by. But the one thing we never heard about Jesus in reaction to Jesus was him just kind of going off the rails when this happened, and punching somebody or, telling somebody where they could go. We don't hear stories about Jesus doing that. But see, Jesus is referred to as the Christ for a reason. He had it down. He knew that the light was within himself. And he knew that to stay connected to that light meant to stay connected to that center that's inside of himself. The center where that yellow chakra lives, one of our Unity 12 powers, wisdom. Being reactive wasn't an option to Jesus because he was coming from that place of wisdom. That place where you take a breath and you feel that breath within the solar plexus. So just everybody do that for a minute. Just take a deep breath and just breathe it from here, from that area, from that diaphragm, from this area right here, not just from your throat. Just take that deep breath. Feels really cleansing, doesn't it? Just coming from that place, really calming, really cleansing. But that's also that place that allows you to gain insight from that wisdom, that divine insight, allowing you to see the situation through a spiritual lens, the situation or the person that may be wanting you to force you to be reactive. You're seeing it through that spiritual lens, through your spiritual eyes rather than through the physical. Allowing you to see the Christ not only in yourself, but through everything and everyone else as well. So it might not always be evident right away in every circumstance or situation. You might have to stop for a second, sometimes a little bit more than a second. You might have to stop to connect to the breath and to connect to that wisdom center within you. But when you do, you'll find that you'll often prevent, if I can talk today, yourself from coming to that place of reaction or from that place of reaction. And instead from that place of light, that place from wisdom within where the heart and the mind meet each other, where they meet on that common ground. Now, unity.org also tells us this about wisdom. It says, faith, wisdom, and love must be brought into everything you do. Wisdom without love is cold. But love without wisdom is misguided and impetuous. Wisdom, the highest form of spiritual knowing, includes divine judgment, discrimination, intuition, and other activities of mind that come under the heading of pure knowing. And this is what Jesus taught us to do. This is the blueprint that Jesus laid out for us, and he did it through his words, his deeds, and his actions. He showed us the way. He left us the blueprint that we need. Matthew 11:28-30 of the Bible says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So in this, we turn to our spiritual knowing. We always go back to our spiritual knowing. And we connect to that yellow chakra and also one of our Unity 12 powers, which is wisdom. And we breathe, we rest, and we know. We take a step back and we allow ourselves to see others and situations through the eyes of a spiritual lens, through our spiritual eyes. Each and every person and situation that we don't necessarily agree with. Maybe we can ask ourselves a few questions in those moments where we want to be reactive. What is the opportunity in this moment for me? What is it that is mine to learn? Maybe we're there to just simply hold that person or situation in love. Maybe that's what we're being called to do in that moment. Much like Jesus was said to have done with everyone he met. Or even much like our meditation was teaching us to do. Jesus didn't agree with what everyone said to him. There's no way he could have. He was still having a human experience. And we've read stories about how people didn't agree with Jesus, but yet Jesus knew the potentiality in every single person he met. The potentiality to act as the good that they were and that we all still are today. We just have to allow ourselves to approach and to be guided from that place within. That place of wisdom. That place where the blend of knowledge from the head and the heart exists from our Christ. And if you don't like the word Christ, use the word divine. Christ or divine nature. We must be willing to be guided by that divine wisdom in every thought, word, and action. It's part of the work that we have been tasked here to do in this lifetime. Not only when it's easy to do, because the true work takes place when it's not easy, right? So let's take a look around today at all of the beautiful colors, that surround us here today. You know, each color has a meaning. Each color here has a lesson hidden within. You know, the world of spirit offers us so many wonderful opportunities to learn and to grow. You know, and I think of Hawaii today and its beautiful yellow hibiscus, and I allow that beautiful color to guide me in that place where the third chakra resides. You know, that unity power. And I touch it and I allow it to guide me here today in this moment. Namaste.